Warrior, my name is Aaron Brown Griggs, a descendant of two lines of Native Americans that I am aware of. This is my journey to uncover my ancestry from the very beginning. Growing up, I always felt an unidentifiable void, a part of me that I couldn't connect with due to a lack of knowledge. As a child, I was informed that I had Native American ancestors, which was evident from my appearance, high cheekbones and a broad smile. I was often teased for resembling Chief Wahoo, the logo of the Cleveland Indians. My grandmother forbade me from wearing this logo, although she permitted the name. She explained that the logo mocked our people. As a teenager, I wore the logo with pride as a tribute to my Native American heritage. My mother's family, specifically her maternal side, hails from Muskogee, Oklahoma. Her grandfather, Herman Monroe Jones, was known as a Creek Indian. His mother, a Native American, had numerous sons who were collectively referred to as the Jones clan. It was rumored that Herman and his brothers would frequent bars, get drunk, and engage in fights. This intrigued me because it is a well-known fact that Native Americans have a low tolerance for alcohol. This realization made me reflect on the challenges within Black communities in America today. Every weekend, bars are often the scenes of violence, and irresponsible behavior leads to tragic consequences. Is this due to a lack of responsibility, or is it because certain populations are genetically predisposed to struggle with alcohol metabolism? This thought made me consider the prevalence of cirrhosis of the liver, prostate cancer, and colon cancer among Black men, ailments directly linked to alcohol consumption. I discovered that Africans, like Native Americans, are more susceptible to the detrimental effects of drugs and alcohol due to their genetic backgrounds. Historically, Native Americans did not consume alcohol or tobacco for pleasure, and their spirituality was deeply rooted in their culture. Reading the Book of Tears provided me with valuable insight into these cultural dynamics. The book, written by an Irish Scotsman, narrates his journey to this land, where he fathered a child with a Native American woman. In Native American culture, it was customary for a child to carry the father's surname, even if the father wasn't present. This led me to examine my father, who has light skin and red hair, and my grandfather, who exhibits Mongoloid features. Our family lore suggested Asian ancestry, which aligns with the theory that Native Americans are descendants of Asian migrants who fled from Genghis Khan's invasions. My research eventually led me to the Dawes Rolls, where I found my father's last name, Griggs, and his grandfather's name. Interestingly, my ancestor's name was listed as Warrior, a name that sparked a deep reflection on my family's history. It is often said in my family that we descend from slaves, yet the name Warrior made me question this narrative. Could a man named Warrior truly have been a slave? This prompted me to recall conversations with my elders. My great-grandmother, who was raped by a white man, bore a mixed-race daughter. My father, Emmett James Griggs too, has a lighter complexion with Mongoloid features, resembling my grandfather, who has a full head of white hair. These features are reminiscent of the Osage tribe of Texas. Examining tribes across the Americas, I observed that people from these regions share certain physical traits, much like African communities with their strong, distinct features. This realization made me appreciate the importance of connecting with people based on their traits rather than skin color. It is a more scientifically accurate method of understanding DNA, as traits are determined by the combination of both parents' genetic material. Reflecting on European history, I learned that wine and alcohol were integral to their culture. In contrast, African and tribal communities had different relationships with substances. African tribes were known to consume hallucinogenic berries, while desert tribes often used opiates or cocaine. Native Americans, however, had very limited exposure to such substances, which may be why they struggled so profoundly when introduced to alcohol. Many of my ancestors are believed to have succumbed to diseases like smallpox, but we seldom discuss those who survived. One such ancestor, my great-great-great-grandfather Yahweh, signed a treaty in 1845, ceding our land to the United States. He died of smallpox in January 1857. His grandson, my great-grandfather Warrior, was considered a freeman. Due to our family's darker complexion, we were often labeled as slaves of the Creek tribe, yet I've found no concrete evidence to support a history of slavery within my family. While there is proof that one family member might have been enslaved, the majority of historical records indicate that my family fought against various European powers, including the French, British, Spanish, and eventually the Americans, to retain our land. The Europeanization of native tribal people in the heart of the Americas, where vast landscapes stretched from the Atlantic to the Pacific, indigenous tribes thrived for centuries. These tribes, each with their unique cultures, languages, and traditions, lived in harmony with nature. They were stewards of the land, passing down wisdom through generations. However, the arrival of Europeans marked the beginning of an era of profound transformation and turmoil. The first encounters between Native Americans and European settlers were often marked by mutual curiosity and cautious exchanges. However, as European settlements grew, so did their hunger for land and resources. Treaties were signed, often under duress or through deceit, leading to the gradual erosion of native lands. The story of Yahafixico in the Treaty of 1845 is but one example of how indigenous people were coerced into ceding their territories. As European influence expanded, so did their efforts to civilize the Native Americans. Missionaries arrived with the intent to convert indigenous populations to Christianity, viewing native spiritual practices as pagan and barbaric. Schools were established to educate Native American children in European ways, often forcibly removing them from their families and communities. These institutions, known as boarding schools, aimed to strip away native identities and replace them with European norms. Language, dress, and customs were all targeted in a campaign of cultural assimilation. My own family history reflects this forced assimilation. My great-grandfather warrior, despite his name symbolizing strength and resistance, found himself in a world increasingly dominated by European values and practices. The indigenous way of life, so deeply intertwined with nature and spirituality, was systematically dismantled. The introduction of alcohol played a significant role in this transformation. Native Americans, who historically had little to no exposure to alcohol, found themselves grappling with its devastating effects. European settlers used alcohol as a tool of control, trading it for land and labor, and exploiting the native population's genetic predisposition to alcohol intolerance. This led to widespread alcoholism, further weakening the social fabric of indigenous communities. Yet, amidst this turmoil, there were stories of resilience and adaptation. Many Native Americans, including my ancestors, fought valiantly to preserve their heritage. They resisted the encroachment of European settlers through armed conflict, legal battles, and cultural preservation efforts. Despite being labeled as slaves or subjugated people, they retained a sense of identity and pride in their ancestry. The blending of cultures also led to unique hybrid identities. As seen in my family, intermarriages between Native Americans and Europeans created new lineages that carried forward both genetic and cultural legacies. My father's lighter skin and red hair, along with my grandfather's Mongoloid features, are testament to the complex tapestry of our lineage. These hybrid identities often faced their own challenges, navigating the prejudices and expectations of both Native and European societies. In contemporary times, the legacy of Europeanization can still be felt among Native American communities. The struggle to reclaim and preserve cultural heritage continues. Languages once on the brink of extinction are being revived. Traditional practices are being celebrated, and there is a renewed interest in understanding the true histories of indigenous peoples. My own journey to uncover my ancestry and understand my heritage is a part of this broader movement. By piecing together the stories of my forebears, I aim to honor their resilience and ensure that their legacy is not forgotten. The narrative of how native tribal people were Europeanized is one of loss and struggle, but also of enduring strength and adaptation. In writing this novel, I hope to shed light on the complexities of this transformation. It is a story that encompasses both the tragedies and triumphs of my ancestors, reflecting the broader history of Native American resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Through understanding our past, we can better appreciate the diverse and rich heritage that shapes who we are today.